90. I'm David Carter, Speaker of the Legislature and member for Calgary-Egmont. After question period today, the House will be dealing with a request for Standing Order 30, a request for an emergency debate with regard to movement of water from the province. The House then will be dealing in Committee of the Whole, where there are 15 bills. This evening, the House meets at 8 o'clock and will probably run until about midnight, dealing with second readings of various bills. There are still 5 bills at second reading stage, further 16 at third reading, 2 awaiting royal assent, and 7 bills, private bills, awaiting second reading. The House is still obviously going to be in session for some considerable time. Let us pray. O Lord, we give thanks as legislators for the rich diversity of our history. We welcome the many challenges of the present. We dedicate ourselves to both the present and the future as we join in the service of Alberta and Canada. Amen.
Introduction of visitors.
Deputy Premier.
Mr. Speaker, it is my pleasure to introduce to you and through you to members of the Assembly His Excellency Wolfgang Behrens, the West German Ambassador to Canada. His Excellency was appointed Ambassador to Canada in 1983. He's visited our province on a number of occasions in the past. He's accompanied by Mr. Rolf Birkner, the Consul of the Federal Republic of Germany, located here in Edmonton. Alberta and West Germany have had a long and enjoyed a productive and mutually beneficial relationship in the field of trade, investment, and of course, since Alberta has a very large number of our citizens who have German origin, it is important that we maintain these close ties. I would ask His Excellency and Mr. Behrens, who are already standing in your gallery, to receive the warm welcome of this Assembly.
Presenting petitions. Reading and receiving petitions. Presenting reports by standing and special committee. Notices of motions. Introduction of bills.
Mr. Speaker, I request leave to introduce a bill being the Miscellaneous Statutes Amendment Act 1990. This bill contains a number of errors, printing errors and omissions, and some non-substantive changes to a number of other acts currently before the Assembly.
The Honourable Attorney General has moved first reading of Bill 54, Miscellaneous Statutes Amendment Act 1990. Those members in favor of first reading, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say no. Carried.
Bill number 54, Miscellaneous Statutes Amendment Act 1990, introduced by the Honourable Mr. Rodstad, now read a first time. Tabling returns and reports.
Thank you, dear.
I wish to table the 1988-89 annual report of the Student Finance Board.
Thank you.
Introduction of special guests.
The Minister of Occupational Health and Safety.
Today, and it's my pleasure to introduce to you and through you to the members of the Legislative Assembly the winners of the first ever Occupation Health and Safety School Safety Poster Contest. The theme of this year's Canadian Occupation Health and Safety Week, June 17th to 23rd, is Young and Alive. And today I was able to kick off Occupation Health and Safety Week in Fort Saskatchewan and present prizes to the winners at the contest at Harry Ainley High School. Mr. Speaker, we received many excellent entries in the contest, some of which have been on display in the Legislative Pedway this past week. And the recent copy of Occupation Health and Safety magazine also features the winning posters. The first prize winner, sitting with his father, Michi Nikolait, over there, are seated in the gallery. And we also have with us the technical arts students from the Belrose Composite High School and their teacher, Mr. Gerald Banford. This school won the group project category in the contest. I would ask all these young people to stand up with their escorts and let's give them a rousing welcome.
The chair doesn't make it a habit of doing this, but I think in the sense that this person has been here longer than the rest of us, he really deserves to be welcomed on his 27th anniversary of the Minister of Municipal Affairs.
Ministerial statements.
Minister of Education.
Mr. Speaker, Premier Getty has made it clear that education is this Alberta government's #1 priority. To meet that responsibility and to make sure that our children are ready for a world of unending change, we have been changing what students are taught, changing how they are taught, to make sure their needs are met today and especially tomorrow. Educational needs are also driven by our government's economic diversification efforts, Mr. Speaker. With economic growth comes new opportunities, new jobs, new families, and more children requiring an education. Clearly, education is an essential investment in the future of our province. Students, parents, and taxpayers and school trustees across the province have told me, in fact, they've told all of my colleagues in government, that we must continue to invest in our schools. Mr. Speaker, the provincial government has heard the message from Albertans loud and clear. Today, I am pleased to announce a 5-year, $700 million commitment to the capital construction of new schools and the modernization of a number of our existing schools throughout Alberta. A multi-year, $700 million plan. This year, the first of a 5-year plan, will see a commitment of $140 million for new construction and modernization. Overall, that's a major contribution by Alberta taxpayers, especially on top of the $1.2 billion contribution over the last decade. Mr. Speaker, this new plan also reflects a more forward-thinking approach, an opportunity for school boards to plan ahead and get more mileage out of Alberta taxpayers' dollars. School boards will be invited to submit 3-year capital plans. Instead of the year-to-year approvals of the past, the province will give a green light to projects in year 1 and approval in principle to plan for projects in years 2 and 3. In summary, Mr. Speaker, a 5-year, $700 million commitment to new and modernized schools, a major investment in education, a long-term investment in our children, a tremendous investment in Alberta's future.
Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, in replying to the ministerial statement, let me first of all say that we do welcome the announcement, and certainly I'm sure people in Alberta will welcome the money because, Mr. Speaker, as I travel the province, there is absolutely no doubt that the infrastructure in the educational institutions is in serious trouble, Mr. Speaker, and that's especially true for some of the rural boards that are not in good shape financially. But I would say to the minister, as I say, well, I welcome this, and I welcome the ministerial announcement, and I will congratulate him for bringing it forward. But before they pound themselves in the back too much, Mr. Speaker, we must remember that this government has been in power for the last number of years. And it's this government, when they came to power, roughly 80% of the revenues for education came from the provincial government, and that's down to less than 60% in a lot of cases, in some rural boards almost half, Mr. Speaker. So they have created a problem. They'll give credit that they are going to, at least a small step in the right direction by putting this money over the next number of years. I'm also pleased, Mr. Speaker, that the school boards will be invited to submit 3-year capital plans instead of the year-to-year approvals in the past. That makes much more sense in terms of the overall planning. And again, I'll give the minister credit for that, Mr. Speaker. But, Mr. Speaker, we'll see. I don't begin to know if this is going to be enough to do the job over 5 years. As I say, it is a step in the right direction. We'll have to take a look at it, but we will give credit where credit is due and welcome this announcement from the minister today.
Oral question period.
Hear the opposition?
Now, Mr. Speaker, to the Treasurer to continue talking about finances, Mr. Speaker. We're near the end of the quarter of our fiscal year. If I may say so, Mr. Speaker, things are not looking too dicey for our Treasurer's bold predictions about reducing the province's deficit by $1 billion. Now, Mr. Speaker, I know the Treasurer is under a lot of pressure. It's tough when you keep making bad predictions, Mr. Speaker, but he's always able to put on a brave face while his revenue predictions are falling to pieces. But, Mr. Speaker, let's face the facts. The stabilization payments are nowhere to be seen. The federal conservative government's high interest rate policy and our own higher debt servicing costs, the continued slump in oil prices, plus the GST starting in January the 1st, 1991, must have this Treasurer very worried, Mr. Speaker. Now, my question to the Treasurer, without meaningless rhetoric, will the Treasurer indicate to the Assembly what our budget projections look like at this particular time?
Well, Mr. Speaker, what I can say is that so far into this fiscal year, most of the projections, with the possible exception of the oil revenue number, are holding fairly firm. What we see is a very strong economy in this province with low unemployment, which obviously means that more people have more money, are earning more money at higher levels, and therefore the tax collections are up, and corporate profits, although not as strong as we'd like to see, are in fact positive. Mr. Speaker, what we have seen in the last day or so has been characterized by a low oil price. Today's announcement by Norway, wherein they've indicated that they're going to ignore the production limits, has of course sent the stock market, the mercantile market, jumping just a bit, and the market has dropped towards the $16 level. That's not enough to cause us to review our assessment of the oil price revenues, or the target for that matter, because, Mr. Speaker, what the market shows is that the long-term contracts are far above the short-term contracts, which means that most expectations with respect to oil prices certainly are for a higher price towards the latter part of this year. And that's in line with our numbers, Mr. Speaker. I'd also add, with respect to oil and gas, that the demand, generally speaking, for oil and gas products, liquid hydrocarbons, gasoline, and the car, are in fact expanding in most large countries with strong economic growth in United States, in Germany, Japan, the heavy industrialized countries. The demand for oil is particularly strong. Mr. Speaker, we think that the Alberta economy is very strong right now. We think we'll be one of the few provinces which will go through 1990 with a very strong economic growth, probably one of the strongest in Canada. And as a result, that generally speaking, our revenue projections, our economic projections, are exactly as we believe. We are seeing some softness in oil price, I agree, but that's not enough for us to cause us to reevaluate or to reconsider the deficit projection that we put forward in March of about $800 million. We think we're pretty close to that target.
Well, I guess it depends on what you mean by pretty close, Mr. Speaker, because I guess you could say he's been pretty close on all his other deficit projections, Mr. Speaker, but that's frankly not good enough. Now, the Treasurer, I expected the answers, again, rose-colored glasses, Mr. Speaker, but I say to the Treasurer, those projections are getting more laughable as each day goes on. The $21 has never been up there for 4 months, Mr. Speaker. Right. The federal high interest rate policies surely have some impact on it, Mr. Speaker, and we aren't even close to getting the stabilization grants. And my question to the Treasurer is this: how can the Treasurer possibly say that his budget projections make sense with all the negative economic indicators that I mentioned, Mr. Speaker?
Well, Mr. Speaker, this government doesn't hold the same gloomy view that the member from Norwood does, and we have repeatedly said before that it's only the worst-case scenarios that benefit the opposition. They want to put that out as their policy position. That's fine. Our view, Mr. Speaker, is quite clearly the opposite. We believe in this province. We believe in its economic strengths. We believe that our economy is strong as any province in Canada. And contrary to some of the trends taking place in the Maritimes or other parts of Canada, our strength is there, Mr. Speaker. Look at the unemployment numbers. Look at the new jobs created. Look at the new investment intentions, Mr. Speaker. That's the fundamental indicators you must look at, not just one indicator to see how an economy is performing. This economy is performing strongly, Mr. Speaker. It's on track. And despite the naysayers across the way in the NDP party, we in fact believe that we're very close to one of the strongest economies ever seen in 1990. And our revenue forecasts will be very close, Mr. Speaker, and we have good control of our expenditures, as I said before. This government's expenditure control is in fact the best expenditure control record of any government in Canada, and we intend to stick to it, Mr. Speaker.
$11.5 billion.
This is from the Treasurer. I just said, could we borrow another $2 billion more, Mr. Speaker?
Right. That's
now, Mr.
right.
Speaker, I asked not for the rhetoric, but I expected to get it anyhow, Mr. Speaker. And the reality is that price of oil is at $16.04, Mr. Speaker. If this Treasurer is so confident that everything's on track, then would he be prepared to table a quarterly financial statement so Albertans know exactly where we stand? Would he be prepared to do that in the summer months?
Hear, hear.
Mr. Speaker, this government prides itself in the amount of information that's provided. We've just gone through a very large debate, Mr. Speaker, on the budget. We spent over 25 days examining the revenue forecast, the expenditures of this government. We've looked at the Heritage Fund, Mr. Speaker. All of these have been debated fully. Now, this government puts forward a comprehensive set of information. The data is provided to all members, to all Albertans, and we have just finished, as I've said, a very exhaustive debate. Public accounts are available as well, Mr. Speaker, to look at the expenditure side. Mr. Speaker, this government continues to maintain its position that we are on course to that balanced budget. We reduced our deficit last year by over $1 billion, Mr. Speaker, and that's a commendable objective and a record that we have to be proud of. This government is on track. We believe in the future of this province, Mr. Speaker, and we think that 1990, 1991 will be boom years for this province, not gloom years, as a member would like us to believe.
Hear, hear, hear. Yes. Just because you yell and scream doesn't necessarily make it come true, Mr. Speaker. But my question is, Mr. Speaker, to the Deputy Premier. Mr. Speaker, the Aboriginal people of Canada, and in particular those in Manitoba, are pressuring the federal government to recognize certain basic rights and principles before passage of the Meech Lake Constitutional Accord. Mr. Speaker, frankly, I was pleased last week when this government seemed to be rethinking, at least I thought they were, its opposition to the principle of Aboriginal self-government. Mr. Speaker, however, reports this weekend suggest that instead of reaching out to the Aboriginal people of Canada at this critical point, and I say critical point in the constitutional process, this minister is trying to accuse the natives of derailing Senate reform, Mr. Speaker. That's not a very helpful statement, if I may say to the minister. My question is, doesn't the minister realize that the Aboriginal people of Canada have legitimate and important concerns quite apart from the issue of Senate reform?
Hear, hear.
Well, the Honourable Leader of the Opposition should do more than rely on news reports of what I was reported to have said. I indeed recognize, as did the Honourable Leader of the Opposition, Leader of the Liberal Party, in his attendance at the First Minister's Conference, that Aboriginal rights issues were clearly placed on the agenda for the second round of discussions relative to the Constitution of Canada. But I said very clearly, and I maintain it now, that Alberta has placed Senate reform as the #1 constitutional priority on the table. It has been there since the Edmonton Declaration of 1986 was confirmed in the Meech Lake Accord of 1987, reaffirmed on June the 9th in the document signed by the First Ministers, and it is our clear intention to proceed with that matter in the priority position in which it was placed. But that does not mean that our government is not prepared to deal with Aboriginal issues in an appropriate place. And that was provided for in the second round document, which the honourable member is thoroughly familiar with. And I take issue with his allegation that we are opposed to Aboriginal self-government in this country. That is clearly and totally out of line with the facts. The fact of the matter is that our government, since 1987, has been the sole provincial government that has lived up to the commitment we made at that 87 Constitutional Conference to deal with Aboriginal self-government within the provincial responsibilities. And the bills that are now before this Assembly are proof positive of the fact that our government is committed to Aboriginal self-government for the Métis people in a way that has not been provided for by any other government in this country. And I assure the Honourable Leader of the Opposition that we are fully prepared to cooperate with other governments in the efforts to define what is meant by Aboriginal self-government, and when it is defined, to place it in the Constitution of Canada. And we have done so with the Métis peoples of Alberta in a clear and positive way, and in a way which has showed absolutely that Alberta is in the forefront of dealing with the Aboriginal peoples for which we have responsibility under the Constitution of Canada. And for anyone to say otherwise...
Honourable Minister, I'm sorry, we need some for the supplementary.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the Minister, this is very fragile times in our country. The Minister said that, and so has the Premier, Mr. Speaker, and I did check these statements out where the Minister said to use a powerful tactic like this to derail Senate reform is not going to sit well with people in Alberta, the people are the First Ministers. Now, what is that if it's not a provocative statement? I asked the Minister, how does he find that that's going to be a helpful statement at this particular time in dealing with Aboriginal rights? How can he justify that?
No.
It's quite clear that to derail Meech Lake will not only derail Aboriginal rights discussions, it will derail Senate reform discussions and any other constitutional discussions which might possibly be held between the governments of Canada, the federal government, and the provincial governments, and the Aboriginal peoples. It strikes me as being extremely unfortunate that one group or organization, or province for that matter, would try to derail the Meech Lake Accord in such a way that it would cast into doubt any method in the foreseeable future by which Canada can deal with its outstanding constitutional issues. And that applies equally to the Senate reform issue and to Aboriginal rights issue. Now, the Honourable Member for West Loch Sturgeon is, as usual, yelling out tremendously thoughtful words like hogwash. Well, I can tell the members of this Assembly that our government is firmly committed and positively committed to dealing with the issues relating to the Aboriginal peoples within the constitutional responsibility of the province of Alberta, and we have done so as no other government has done since 1987, and those are the facts.
Mr. Speaker, this minister better recognize that those comments were counterproductive, and I can assure them that they were in this process, Mr. Speaker. They were counterproductive from what he wants. Now, Mr. Speaker, also, the problem that we face at this stage is that is the Native people do not trust governments, and specifically they don't trust this government. And in 1987, this minister said the right to Aboriginal self-government would, and I quote, have an extremely destructive effect on Canada as a nation, and slammed the door of this government on entrenching Aboriginal rights. Now, in view of that, in view of the statements, Mr. Speaker, that the minister made over the weekend, my question to the minister is this. When will the minister realize that Aboriginal concerns are extremely important to many Canadians and that his actions and comments regarding these matters are frankly petulant and irresponsible?
Well, I regret that the Leader of the Opposition has tried to turn this issue into a political issue at this stage of these discussions. I repeat again that our government alone amongst the governments of Canada with responsibility for Métis peoples has moved forward to define what is meant as self-government for the Métis peoples of this province. The only province that has done so since 1987. And it is certainly, Mr. Speaker, inappropriate for the Leader of the Opposition and other members in this Assembly to deny that fact. This is absolutely clear, and we believe that you must define what is meant by self-government, entrench it in the Constitution, and that is what we have proposed to do, what we are doing right now in this legislature through the Métis legislation now before us. And if other governments had moved the way Alberta has, this problem, which is now very clear, that of the Aboriginal people's concerns, would not be there. If other governments had acted the way our government had acted, this problem would not be there today. And that is the fact, and it is regrettable that other governments have not moved with the same degree of leadership and direction and consultation with the Métis peoples as we have done in this province. That is the fact.
That's a fact.
Edmonton, Glengarry.
Mr. Speaker, Albertans are concerned about the prospect of further pollution of their waterways. My questions are to the Minister of Environment. As recently as last week, a national conference held in Edmonton on environment and health identified substances, dioxins and furans, as cancer-causing substances. They also concluded at this conference that much more knowledge was now available, that much more concern should be placed by government in the area of the development of plants, pulp mills in particular, that intrude into the environment. We now have a study of fish fillets that show dioxins and furans that exceed Canadian standards. My first question to the Minister is this: will the Minister agree that extra care and precaution, that more attention and more review is now needed because of these most recent conclusions in the area of environment, and particularly dioxins and furans?
Well, yes. Of course I'll agree. That's why we have commissioned Jaco Puri to take a detailed review of the scientific evidence contained in the LPAC report. That's why the Premier committed without any hesitation whatsoever to a full and detailed study of this whole situation on the Athabasca and the Peace Rivers. Of course we are concerned, and we as a government want to get as much information as we possibly can on this whole issue of chlorinated organics, and determine what in fact mitigative measures have to be put in to make sure that these chlorinated organics are reduced to the most possible extent.
The Minister is now concerned, and it looks like he's more concerned than before. Would he agree to put the second proposal of ALPAC before a proper environmental review assessment, a thorough scientific review, so that the dangers of these substances are clearly understood?
Well, Mr. Speaker, you know, I think that I have to point out once again, it's been said in this House many, many times, that this government has demonstrated a tremendous concern for the environment, such concern that we have put in place the highest achievable standards in the world relative to pulp mill development and the environmental protection that has to be applied. The highest achievable standards in the world. With respect to the revised proposal, this is a matter that was just recently discussed between the federal government and officials from Alberta Environment, and and in due course, I'll be discussing this matter with my government.
Mr. Speaker, this is the sort of wishy-washy baloney that Albertans have been getting for some time. The question is simple and clear. Will the minister, now that he has seen that this is a concern, that more attention, that more review is needed because of the dangers of these substances to human beings, to the environment, will he agree to allow the NRCB to do a thorough review of Diashawa and ALPAC's second proposal? Clear answer.
With respect to Daishoa, the answer is no, because that particular project went through all the reviews that were required at that particular time. I've explained time and time again, they played by all the rules that were in place. Not only that, they went beyond the rules. They went beyond the rules, refitted that plant halfway through construction to make it probably the most environmentally safe bleachcraft process in the world today. With respect to the revised LPAC proposal, I will repeat, this was a matter, an issue that was discussed by my officials and federal government officials on Thursday and Friday of last week. I have yet to assess their recommendations, and I have yet to discuss this matter with my government, and I'll be doing that in due course. And once those discussions have taken place, I'm sure that there will be a public pronouncement of some sort relative to where we go from here.
At the Baskel-Aklevish.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Honourable Deputy Premier. I believe that our province has no doubt the best social programs in North America. We are spending... and if you listen to these guys, there'll be more people on social assistance. The best social programs in North America, Mr. Speaker, we are spending billions of dollars on these programs. During February of 1990, the federal finance minister announced a reduction in assistance through the Canada Assistance Plan to Ontario, Alberta, and British Columbia. I understand that there was a recent court ruling on this important issue. My question to the Deputy Premier is, what is the impact on the province and intergovernmental agreements on this court ruling?
It's a very important issue which is now being decided by the British Columbia Court of Appeal. And that, of course, I want to be careful, since the possibility exists that an appeal might lie to... Mr. Speaker, I'm having so much trouble because you are being advised by the leader, House Leader for the NDP, and by the so-called expert Liberal leader about what may or may not be sub judice. I'm just... obviously, as the honourable members are aware, our government is very concerned that the federal government acted unilaterally in terms of breaching an agreement between the governments of Canada. And a court action was taken in British Columbia, joined in to by Alberta, Ontario, and Manitoba. And the British Columbia Court of Appeal has unanimously ruled that the federal government cannot unilaterally breach such agreements. And that, of course, in terms of continuing assistance to Alberta and those other provinces under the Canada Assistance Plan, we believe will be a major step forward in terms of defining how governments deal with each other in the future. And it's another example of the concern and leadership that our government has taken to make sure that we do have good relationships based upon legal and binding agreements between governments.
In light of this decision, is the Alberta government going to ask the federal government to rescind Bill 69, and possibly what does this mean in dollars to Alberta annually?
Well, here's where I think the sub judice rule does come into play in a very major way. We're going to have to wait and see whether or not the federal government does decide to appeal the decision. But in any event, should the decision be not appealed or upheld, then of course it would mean additional monies would flow to us according to the terms of the original agreement. And that of course would be in keeping with the ambition and the aim of our government in joining in the lawsuit. As I said, another example of leadership on behalf of the people of Alberta. Edmonton Avonmore.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My questions are to the Minister of Health. Mr. Speaker, on Friday, a federal study reiterated what we've known for many years, that sexual abuse of children is a severe problem which has serious mental health and social implications, including behavioral disorders, teen suicide, and substance abuse. Although the Minister of Health has allocated new money for children's mental health, it is a small amount when one realizes that 50% of female children and 30% of male children are victims of childhood sexual abuse. In light of this most recent study, will the minister commit to providing targeted funding to community-based treatment programs for children who have been sexually abused?
Mr. Speaker, within the overall context of the budgeting planning for the provincial government, certainly the issue of adequately funding our whole health spectrum, but including our mental health spectrum, is clearly a priority of this government. I am interested in the results of the federal study. I was particularly interested in the emphasis that the federal study put on education as a major target area for understanding and preventing child abuse. And certainly the Minister of Education may wish to supplement my remarks, but within the overall contextual planning, we will continue along those priority areas.
Mr. Speaker, just briefly to supplement, the school setting is just one means, one vehicle by which we can overcome this serious problem. And we are conducting a serious review of the entire area of special education and virtually redefining the special education field. And this is one area that involves children, and in that the ability of a child to learn is impeded in a serious way when they come to school with serious social or psychological or emotional or behavioral problems. And I'm looking forward to the outcome of this study to know how better we can equip teachers and parents and the larger community to ensure that we've got better solutions to overcome this very serious problem.
Well, Mr. Speaker, one of the solutions is to provide treatment for children who are victims of child sexual abuse. Education initiatives can only promote disclosure, and then we need treatments. Mr. Speaker, the report calls for a response to this major social problem by implementing federal provincial cost-sharing programs for frontline workers. Will the minister commit immediately to meeting with the federal Minister of Health and Welfare in order to get more funding? Because our children need treatment, not studies.
Well, Mr. Speaker, in fact, there is a meeting of health ministers scheduled in the next several months, and I'm sure that the federal health minister and all health ministers will want to review the results of this study. But I think it's important to highlight the move that was made in the budget this year with respect to children's mental health for treatment services for children, not only from the cause of sexual abuse, but from whatever gets to the point where that child has a mental health problem. That is the way we approach mental health in this province. I'm not denying that child abuse is one of the items, but putting resources into appropriate treatment in our whole mental health system is clearly one of the priorities. But in terms of the agenda for health ministers, it'll certainly be something that I know we will all want to discuss with him.
Sturgeon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question today is to the Minister of Agriculture. I believe the front one, I'm not sure which one, but this is with respect to the malting barley, and I think malting it would be it would be Clyde, I believe, if it's to do with malt. But they do with the Sexmas canola, Sorry, Mr. Speaker. The treasurer is up to his tricks again, taking our attention off his big deficit. The agricultural processing industry has been in some disarray, largely because of this government's interference. We go back historically all the way to Sexsmith canola plant, the Cargill beef processing plant, Gainers and Fletcher's pork facilities fiasco. Clearly a case of mistakes that over the last 10 years, Mr. Speaker, have amounted to maybe, for cost to taxpayers, nearly $1 billion in mismoves. Now, the question today, Mr. Speaker, is in view of this recent announcement, and the fact that Canada Malting, one of the free enterprises in the business operating without government subsidies, may have to suspend a $22 million modernization program. Why would the province decide to go ahead and subsidize a new entry into the field when the malting manufacturers are doing quite fine without government subsidies now? Why?
Thank you, honourable member.
Mr. Speaker, I might point out that the out-of-province visitors that were in the gallery last Thursday when I introduced them in connection with this project were not impressed with the rude interjections of the member from Westlock Sturgeon. I might also point out that the community leaders from Alex were just as unimpressed. I might also point out if the honourable member would take his role as an agricultural critic conscientiously, and if he'd have been over for the announcement and learned the details of the announcement, he would know very well that there is no subsidy involved here.
As Mr. Speaker, as Eliza Doolittle would say, his words break me ruddy heart. But to go on a little bit farther, Mr. Speaker, no, I think ruddy's all right. In view of the fact that one of the last abortive attempts by the minister to stick his nose into the free market resulted in the Gainers and pork subsidies following from the Gainers bailout in the free trade agreement. What attempts has he made to check out whether the Canada-U.S. free trade agreement now will not countervail all our malt exports just because he decided to help out a plant that's locating in the Premier's constituency?
Mr. Speaker, the honourable member obviously cannot hear or will not hear, and I would further correct him and suggest that the village of Alex is located in the constituency represented by the honourable member for Lacombe. I stressed in my first response that there was no subsidy involved here. The Agricultural Development Corporation has a mandate to promote agribusiness in this province. This government is committed to as much value adding as possible to our agricultural products, to increase employment in rural Alberta, to bring revitalization to rural Alberta, to bring jobs to rural Alberta. This project fits in very neatly. Since it's truly commercial, as far as our involvement is concerned, there is nothing countervailable here. It's a tremendously good news story for a lot of farmers and for a small community in this province, and I'm amazed that an agricultural critic from Westlock Sturgeon would be working against his farming population.
Calgary Foothills. Calgary Foothills.
Mr. Speaker, today the Minister of Education announced a 5-year, $700 million school capital program. This announcement once again confirms the Premier's commitment to education. However, in my constituency, parents, teachers, and students have all recognized the need for schools in the McEwen Sandstone areas, as well as in my neighboring constituency in the Hawkwood community. Can the Minister of Education please advise that with this announcement, if these schools will now be built?
Mr. Speaker, today's announcement is really phase one. It's really phase one of a two-phase announcement. by the end of this month, 150 school boards across the province will have provided to the school buildings branch a list of priorities, a list of projects that they consider to be the priorities in their individual school districts. Those 150 lists will be brought together on one list, and the criteria and the priorities are well laid out and very clear to all school boards as to how we come up with a provincial list of priorities. Once that process is completed, and Mr. Speaker, I should add that whole process is driven by need, where the enrollments and the growth in enrollments is the greatest, where the need for remodernized facilities, where that need is the greatest. Those are what drive the provincial priority list. That will be completed by the school buildings branch over the summer, Mr. Speaker, and then I expect that the province will have an announcement to make in the fall, sometime in October, when we will announce a project-by-project basis for the 1991 capital year and approval in principle to plan for additional projects in 1992 and 1993.
Well, Mr. Speaker, sometimes reality has to be recognized, and in a time of fiscal restraint, $700 million of taxpayers' money is a substantial commitment. Could the Minister of Education please advise us as to how he can justify a 5-year plan and this major commitment of funds?
Well, Mr. Speaker, the honourable member raises exactly the point that school boards and school trustees have been making to all of my government colleagues over the last number of months. We need some assistance in planning for the future, is what school trustees have been saying. We've faced in this province over the last 2 years a net enrollment growth of some 8,000 students every September. And we expect that, Mr. Speaker, to continue unabated over the next 5 years. That plus the need to modernize existing schools. We have some 1,500 in the province. About one-half of those are more than 25 or 30 years old. And by the end of the decade, we will face 3 out of 4 of our schools that are in excess of 25 or 30 years old. So clearly, there is a need to modernize those facilities. So that pressure is there, Mr. Speaker, to ensure that we can give school boards the opportunity to plan ahead. And therein lies the reason why we've gone to a 3-year rolling approval, so that in year 1, we can give a green light to projects to proceed in full, but also for years 2 and 3 to give school boards approval in principle to plan for projects for years 2 and 3.
Edmonton Jasper, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Until now, the provincial government has attempted to justify licensing new sources of organic chloride pollution on the basis that the older mills are reducing their amount of pollution. The argument is that we have just the right amount of toxic pollution, and if we spread it around to more pulp mills, then we'll be able to go on with the agenda of completing the pulp mill expansion in Alberta. Well, that's their story anyways, Mr. Speaker, and they have stuck to it up to now. But the argument has been blown out of the water by some new fish samples which indicate that there are fish in Alberta rivers which exceed existing health and welfare standards for human consumption of fish. And these fish were trout and whitefish samples caught on the Athabasca and the Wapiti rivers. Sound familiar? Well, I wonder if in view of the new information, the Minister of the Environment would indicate whether he personally supports and whether his government supports the very clear recommendation in the ALPAC EIA Review Board report that the studies on dioxin in fish be completed before new pulp mills are licensed.
Well, we have a situation of comparing apples and oranges and grapes and apples and every other kind of fruit you can find. But very, very simply, Mr. Speaker, the situation relative to this report, and I don't have it in my hands right now because the normal way of reporting through Environment Canada is through Fisheries and Oceans to Health and Welfare, and Health and Welfare, on the basis of their analysis, determines whether or not a health warning should be issued. They have not yet done that analysis. So we don't know what the situation is officially from the federal government relative to their examination of those fish, and I think it would be very inappropriate to comment at this particular time because, Mr. Speaker, unlike the honourable member for Jasper Place, I'm not in the position, nor will I ever be in the position of fear-mongering.
Right. Well, Mr. Speaker, the minister talks about apples and oranges and fruits. We're talking about fish caught in Alberta rivers which are above safe levels for human consumption. It's an alarming situation, and I don't think you can talk about fear-mongering. I've had a motion for return on the order paper for more than 3 months, 183, asking for just the information in the possession of this government on dioxin and furin in fish. And it's sat while hundreds of other motions have been dealt with, and it's sat and it's sat, well, 3 months. I would simply, it seems to me irrefutably clear that the province is hoping to license this Alpac mill without sharing the existing information on fish contamination in the river. They won't do the studies that they were told to do by the board. And I wonder if the minister will indicate what gives this government the right to manipulate the process by withholding this important information while they're considering licensing a new pulp mill.
Finally, the message is getting through, and I'm glad that the honourable member alluded to motion for return 183, because we as a government are also waiting for the same information that he's waiting for. I just explained to the honourable member that it goes from Environment Canada to Fisheries and Oceans to Health and Welfare Canada. Once they have done their assessment, they will get that information back to me. That will be public information. When I get that information, I'll be glad to share it with the honourable member and all other Albertans.
Edmonton Mill Woods, followed by Calgary McKnight.
Mr. Speaker, my questions are to the Minister of Occupational Health and Safety today. And of course, as this is Occupational Health and Safety Week in Canada, we have to be horrified when we look back at the past year in Alberta at the spate of occupational health and safety disasters in this province. We had lead poisonings in Medicine Hat, we had gassings in Hinton, we had 2 workers killed at Daishawa, and the list goes on. We had some 60,000 injured workers or killed workers in Alberta last year. The latest victims of this government's negligence in occupational health and safety are the hundreds of workers at Suncor who have been dismissed from their jobs because they dared to exercise their rights under Section 27 of this Minister's Act, the Occupational Health and Safety Act, and refused to work when there was a dangerous condition, in this case an asbestos hazard. So I want to ask this minister that, given that this kind of dismissal by employers is a direct violation of Section 28 of his own act, will he send a clear message to the employers of this province that this kind of intimidation is totally unacceptable and launch a vigorous prosecution against Suncor in this matter?
Mr. Speaker, it's my understanding that Occupation Health and Safety, the union, and Suncor are discussing these very things today, and I'm waiting for further responses.
Well, once again, we have a minister who won't go to bat for the people he's paid to go to bat for, the injured workers of this province. But if he won't do his job there, Mr. Speaker, could we at least ask the minister this? Would he, given the extensive asbestos hazards that exist across work sites throughout the province, would he at least take some initiative that he could give to workers today that he will make sure that asbestos hazards are cleaned up all across the province by trained and properly protected workers? Would he at least do that?
Mr. Speaker, this minister has talked to more injured workers, has met with more injured workers. He will continue to represent injured workers throughout this province on every day that I can. Mr. Speaker, in response to the honourable member's question, it's certainly something that Occupation Health and Safety is working on a daily basis, and we will continue to do so. But to suggest that I do not go to bat for injured workers is just so much nonsense, and the honourable member should know that.
Calgary McKnight.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, last year some 31,000 Albertans registered in some 48,000 correspondence courses through the Alberta Correspondence School. This school offers the most successful and adequate service to a number of people who are dropouts, who are incarcerated in our jails, or who simply are seeking high school equivalency. On June the 1st, however, the school's fees were hiked by as much as $130 per course. This substantial increase of 600% is just one more hidden tax, one more roadblock for Alberta's poor. To the Minister of Education, given that this is International Literacy Year, how can the Minister justify this regressive tax which will make further education unattainable for a lot of Albertans?
Mr. Speaker, perhaps the honourable member would like to lay all the facts before the Assembly, and if she's not prepared to do that, I am. Mr. Speaker, for those students who will continue to be under the roof of a school board, for whom those students will be resident students, school boards are fully funded today to purchase those materials at the new cost that have been spelled out as of June the 1st. They are fully funded as a result of the grant that goes to all school boards, School Foundation Program Fund grants of some $1,958 for grades 1 through 6, $2,106 for grades 7 through 9, and $2,272 for grades 10 through 12. School boards have more than enough money to purchase those courses on behalf of those students. Mr. Speaker, for those students who are independent students, who are not under the roof of one particular school board, the fees that are charged, and I'll give the honourable member some examples, say for Biology 20, the course fee for one full course for Biology 20 is going to be $15. For Accounting 10 will be $15. For computer literacy will be $15. Now, Mr. Speaker, that is a bargain. That is a bargain, given the kind of material that these students will be learning from is upgraded, brand new material that costs many, many more dollars than $10 or $15 to develop those materials. Mr. Speaker, that is a bargain at any price.
Thank you. Will the Minister commit today to establishing a bursary program for those courses with a much higher increase, courses which he hasn't mentioned, so that the impact will be minimized for people on very low income?
Well, Mr. Speaker, there is no question that these fees for correspondence school, as it relates to those independent students who are not funded by a school board, have remained virtually unchanged, Mr. Speaker, and it is primarily in those areas, those courses, for those students who are fully funded by this provincial government, that the fees have gone up, Mr. Speaker. And I repeat again that those school boards are, in fact, fully funded. In fact, if they choose to educate all of their children by way of their students, by way of correspondence lessons, Mr. Speaker, they get more money. Those school boards receive more money than they, in fact, need to educate those children. So, Mr. Speaker, I would hope that the honourable member, when she raises a question like this in the future, will want to lay out all information before honourable members of the Assembly.
Might we have unanimous consent to revert briefly to the introduction of special guests? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Bow Valley.
Mr. Speaker, I'm happy today to introduce some members from Bow Valley constituency. Sitting in the members' galleries from the Bazzano Hospital District is the Bazzano Hospital Chairman, Floyd George, the Administrator, Dean Roy, and a hospital board member, Donna Rose. Donna is also a member of the Alberta Hospital Association and sits on the Seniors Advisory Council. Great. Maybe we could give them the phone.
The Chair advises the House that we did indeed receive a notice understanding Order 30 for today, and also another one understanding Order 40. And in both cases, of course, the Chair would just remind the members that in future it would be much more helpful to the operation of the House to also stand up at the beginning of the day and give announcement to the House in that regard. So first, the member for West Loch Sturgeon, understanding Order 30.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. My motion today is under 30 is to have a debate on the emergency of a debate on exporting water from the province of Alberta. And speaking only, Mr. Speaker, as the rules require only to the emergency of the debate, I think it's very, very important because the cities of Santa Barbara and Los Angeles are soliciting bids for fresh water throughout North America, and in particular in British Columbia, and in fact the Sawridge Band in the Slave Lake area are considering bidding to supply water to the U.S. Now, of course, there's no particular holdback about sending water out in bottles or in glasses or in containers. We all recognize that. But when the cities of Santa Barbara or others of California ask for water, they're asking for a lot more than you would shipping out in bottles. It'd be an awful lot of glass for that, Mr. Speaker. So consequently, any contract to supply water to Santa Barbara or Los Angeles would almost certainly mean a pipeline, and in other words, export of water, and all the infringements that come upon the utility laws that come with shipping water out. In other words, you would not be able to cut people off once hooked up by a pipeline. The emergency of the issue, Mr. Speaker, is that although the Free Trade Act is interpreted by some as saying, no, it will not allow the export of water, others interpret it as saying it does allow the export of water. In fact, those that think that way control the Ontario government thinking to the extent that they moved a bill to stop the water from going out regardless of what the Free Trade Act said. But in this particular case, regardless of whether you agree with that interpretation of the Free Trade Act or not, Mr. Speaker, we have a band of people, quite rightfully, going ahead, spending money and time on the idea that they can export water from Alberta. I think, therefore, is a very important debate indeed, as Alberta is a landlocked, basically dry province as far as water is concerned, and I think it's very important that we set in motion or send a very clear message to our public that we will not countenance exports of water that are hooked up by pipeline or for long-term needs. And I think that's a very important matter that should be discussed in this legislature in order to prevent heartache, unnecessary expense, and sending a wrong message to our public.
Speaking to urgency, Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, this is an absolutely phony motion under Standing Order 30. What recent proposals does the honourable member refer to which is in the administrative competence of the government? What act of the government of Alberta, or proposal or policy or anything else of the government of Alberta relates to the matter which the honourable member has raised today? There's no proposal by the government of Alberta to export water to the United States. And because he may have read something in the newspaper about somebody in California maybe wanting to buy water, and somebody in Alberta, an Indian band, the Sawridge Band, may be wanting to sell water, in what form I don't know, to bring the motion of this kind before the Assembly is clearly an abuse of Standing Order 30. And the honourable, Standing Order Beauchesne 387 makes it clear. The Standing Order is clear that the question be specific. Specific. Recent proposals to export Alberta's water to the United States. What is the honourable member talking about?
He doesn't know. He's obviously...
Really, Mr. Speaker, if we are going to have debates under Standing Order 30 on what the honourable member, any honourable member may have read of in the newspaper,
opens his closet.
It's going to occupy all the time of the House. We could be debating all sorts of things. I think this is quite out of order, and I would certainly oppose Your Honour granting the consent of the Assembly today to something which is not the policy of the government, clearly not a policy of the government, where no specific proposal has before this government or before the people of Alberta from the government, and it is, in my view, completely an abuse of the process that is provided for under Standing Order 30.
Chair. Additional comments from the New Democrat caucus? No. Thank you. Understanding Order 30, indeed, the requirement, subsection 1 has been met. And with respect to the matter of urgency, while the issue indeed has importance, there are other means of being able to address the debate within the life of a legislature. So the chair believes that the matter of urgency is not met. Standing Order 40 request, Edmonton Mill Woods.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The resolution that I have put before the House under Standing Order 40 today asks that the Legislative Assembly direct the Standing Committee on Public Affairs to conduct full public hearings across the province to identify areas requiring improvement in terms of occupational health and safety legislation, regulations, standards, and enforcement. And clearly speaking to the urgency now, this is, of course, Occupational Health and Safety Week in Canada, and we have something which must be considered a disaster, some 60,000 Alberta workers each year being injured and killed on the job. And so I ask all members' support for this particular resolution to see if we can't make some reduction in the tragic numbers of injured and killed workers in the province of Alberta. Thank you.
The honourable member for Edmonton Mill Woods has made the request under Standing Order 40. Those in favour of unanimous consent, please say aye. Opposed, please say no. Matter fails. Orders of the day.
Government bills and orders.